'Tis I, your old pal King Chuck. Oh my God, I'm actually in the middle of a snowstorm right now. Snow and blowing, and it's cold out. It's about 18 degrees. I'm actually walking my dog. You know, here she is playing in the snow, walking around, eating the snow. Here I am, just getting blown on and snowed on. It's like she don't care. That is the joy of having a dog, and unfortunately I'm not wearing a hat. I wish I did, because now my ears are blistering, I got hair, I got icicles on my follicles, on my body. It's like, and my dog is like, fuck you, asshole. You are my slave. And we're going to do things my way. Even though now we're walking to the vehicle. Thank God. I am feeling a lot better. I, of course, had the flu for about 2 weeks, and lots of body pains, and I'm feeling a billion times better now. Now my dog is taking a pee, I think it is. Is she peeing or pooping? Oh, little poop. Little itty-bitty little girl dog poop. There you go. Yes, I've come to the conclusion that yes, women do poop. Even the most beautiful women who have ever lived on God's green earth have released their fair share of bowel movements, and that's life. So, let's get to some radio news. Some news in the world of broadcasting in northern Michigan. Big news, actually. A radio institution in northern Michigan is retiring Ron Jolly. He's been with WTCM Radio mostly for 40 years, although he also worked for Light 96 as that station's news director. He also worked for the Michigan Talk Radio Network. I actually saw him there when I decided to take a walk through their Charlevoix headquarters. But he always went back to WTCM. And anyway, he and his sidekick, Colleen Wares, are both retiring in April. So there you go. They are both retiring. I believe Colleen Wares is related. She might be a former wife of the owner of Wares Auto Sales. They've been around forever. So anyway, Ron is retiring from WTCM AM 580. No word on his replacement, although I will admit WTCM's ratings are going down. Yeah, people are getting fed up with MAGA talk. And, so anyway, all I can say about Ron Jolly is, aside from politics, I heard he is a real nice guy. And he was actually my good friend, Mark Stacer's best friend at WTCM. Mark died a couple of years ago. And I remembered watching Mark's funeral on TV, and Ron would talk about how a long time ago they used to air Detroit Tiger games on WTCM, and what happened was Ron would talk about how Mark would, during the game, he would turn on the microphone and walk a couple of feet away from the control console, and he would say, "Prune juice, get your prune juice here." Mark was a man who loved scatological humor, and he as a matter of fact, I love the story about how his good friend, what's her name? Ryan Dilbert. There we go. Ryan Dilbert would tell the story about how Mark Stacer would he recorded a boating forecast from Merlin Dumbrell, and he was supposed to do like a foghorn, but it was actually one of his farts slowed down on a tape recorder. And it's like, and that aired for many, many years. Yeah, Mark was a man of a wonderful, who had a brilliant sense of humor. Deeply missed. But anyway, of course, he was always backed with some great professionals, including Mr. Jolly, and all I have to say is when Ron retires, Godspeed to him. So anyway, we got to talk about Trump, unfortunately. And I am very disappointed. It's hard to believe it's just 2 days away from the 1-year anniversary Donald Trump became president. And boy, howdy, we are in deep shit. The economy is taking the shit. We have massive protests and rioting in Minneapolis because of ICE. ICE murdered an innocent young mother of 3 kids. And Trump has not maintained his promises due to the fact that he told everyone, yeah, he's going to release the Epstein files, and so far we've only gotten Jack Diddley. So the story is Donald Trump decided. So anyway, he decided this week to go to Detroit to the Ford truck plant in Dearborn. And he and the CEO were taking a ride around the plant and watching all the trucks being built. And what happened was one of the men on the floor, his name is TJ Sabula, he called Donald Trump a pedophile protector. And Trump's response was he gave him the finger. Wow. That's our president, folks. That's the president of the United States for you. A man who has simply told the American worker, fuck you. Anyway, TJ was suspended without pay. Although the United Auto Workers Union, they have supported him through the process. And TJ was even given a GoFundMe page that has raised over $300,000. And TJ said, actually put a stop to it himself because he felt this is not about him, and I don't blame him. This is a 40-year-old father of several kids, and he's just putting a paycheck, putting food and paying off the rent of the thing, or a mortgage, or I don't know what he has. But that's what people do. They raise families, and for this lying sack of shit of a human being to do what he did to this young man shows how bad this country has become under Donald Trump. And it's amazing how so many people who voted for him say, we didn't vote for this. And I want to tell them, yes, you voted for this shit. You voted for Donald Trump to come in and fuck up this country. And don't look at me, because I've never voted Republican in my life. You know? So let me explain this to you, folks. The Ford Motor Company and Donald Trump somewhat deserve each other. You know, if you look at the history of the Ford Motor Company, it's a very fucked up history. Henry Ford was a man who was gaslit as a young boy by a pastor. The Ford family went to a small Pentecostal church. Not Pentecostal, Episcopalian. There we go. I got the two terms mixed up. Episcopalian is like Catholic-ish. So what happened was they went to this church, and their pastor was telling everyone that if you the Jewish people are evil, they don't like Jesus, they don't, they won't accept him as their Lord and Savior, blah, 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 wah, wah, wah. And so what happened is, you see Donald Trump, so this is what happens. So when Henry Ford turns into an older man, becomes very wealthy and all that, he buys up several newspapers in the Detroit area, and he decides to publish editorials about his personal beliefs on Jewish people. And these books became published worldwide. These editorials became part of a book that was published worldwide. Henry Ford then decides. So anyway, there was one man out there who loved Henry. And guess who that man's name was? You may have heard of him. Adolf Hitler. Hitler loved Henry Ford. So what happened was Henry Ford became an inspiration for Hitler. Hitler, of course, we all knew what he did. The Holocaust, concentration camps, you named it. He was one of the fathers of World War II. And it wasn't until the end of the Second World War that Henry Ford was watching what he did wrong, because people were giving him newsreels of all the carnage that happened in Germany during the Second World War. Henry Ford, he was having multiple strokes at the time. He was pretty much on his deathbed. Of course, he died. But what happened was the Ford Motor Company, many years after he died, decided to do some type of reparations. One of the things that they did was they decided to fund the movie Schindler's List to be aired on NBC, uncut and uncensored. And Steven Spielberg even introduced the movie himself. And I remembered seeing the movie as a kid. It was a very, it was very thought-provoking. And, what really hurt me, and this is another reason why I kind of hated the fact that I grew up in northern Michigan. The local NBC affiliate in northern Michigan, which is 7 and 4, they were actually handed a notice of apparent liability from the FCC. So what happens is the FCC got a report that 7 and 4 was showing imagery of nudity on their station, and it was during Schindler's List. So what happened was, I guess 7 and 4 had to write a letter to the FCC saying, the movie's indecent, it was part of the network feed, blah blah blah, we had no control over it. And the FCC did declare that their movie's not indecent at all. and that the person who wrote the letter, here's the thing, folks. This is why I hate Northern Michigan. It's because there's so many people who live up there who have no fucking high school education, and they probably have been overly indoctrined with organized religion. And because of this, they will view a movie like Schindler's List as a disgusting porno film, which it isn't. Yes, there was, scenes of nudity, but it's to help the narrative of the movie. But anyway, back to the Ford family. But this is not the only reason why I hate the Ford family. So the story was that William Clay Ford, of course, was the owner of the Detroit Lions football team. And what happened was Bill Ford was not a likable owner. When Ford owned the Lions, the team only won one playoff game. One fucking playoff game in the 50 years he owned the team. So what happened was so this is what happened. Bill Ford made a ginormous mistake. So what happened was Bill learned that Steve Mariucci was on the market. He was the head coach of the 49ers, and he had just gotten fired. So when Mooch got fired, Bill Ford decided, I'm going to go ahead and hire him. But he broke an NFL edict doing so. So what happened was the NFL has something called the Rooney Rule. So if you don't know a thing about football, let me explain to you what the Rooney Rule is. The Rooney Rule was created by Dan Rooney. He was the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. His family still owns it. Rooney was upset of the lack of diversity among the head coaches in the NFL. And he got angry that so what happened was when Dan Rooney learned that there were very few black coaches in the NFL, this is what he did. He decided to tell the NFL, you got to do something about this. So now there's a rule in the NFL that if your team has a vacant head coach spot, they must interview people of color first. Well, guess what happened? William Clay Ford did not ask a person of color first. He went ahead and willy-nilly hired Mooch as the head coach. So he got severely fined by the NFL. Not only was he severely fined by the NFL, he got into a huge heated argument on the phone with the commissioner, and the commissioner, so what happened was he just simply hung up on the guy, slammed the phone on him. But guess what? The joke was on William Clay Ford, because guess what? Mooch was not a good coach of the Lions. He sucked. He only lasted like 2 or 3 seasons. I don't remember. But it's like, something, man. When William Clay Ford died, it really lifted up a lot of problems that the Lions had for too long. And one of so this is what happened. When William Clay Ford died, of course, his wife Martha took over, and she really proved to everyone she was a much better owner than her husband was. Now, but then again, she fucked up because they hired a new president for the team. He was a former guy with the New England Patriots, and they had the mindset that, well, the Patriots won all these Super Bowls with Tom Brady, so it's like, yeah, let's go ahead and hire some of the same people. Well, they had a black guy coach the team. He was really good, Jim Caldwell. Yeah, he made a few mistakes here and there, and well, so does Dan Gamble. But guess what? Even though the Lions had a 9-7 season, they fired him and replaced him with Matt Patricia, and Matt Patricia sucked. He was the worst coach in the post-WCF era of the Lions. Now, yes, the Lions still had a winning record this year. They were 9-8. But, they had, problems with the, offensive coordinator. And I agree, he sucked. And, they had problems with the OC. They had problems with trying to get targets for Jared Goff. I mean, the Lions could have done better this season. And, I'm kind of hoping that most of you will finally get to listen to this on before the big game on Sunday night. This is why I am actually rooting for the Chicago Bears this year. Yeah, the Bears are playing Los Angeles, the Rams tonight. And the reason why I'm actually rooting for Chicago is because the Lions beat Chicago twice this year. If the Bears win tonight against Los Angeles and go all the way into the Super Bowl, it proves that there is a chance for the Lions. And not only that, I'm not going to lie to you. I do hope, I'm pissed off that the Broncos won last night. And if the Rams win tonight too, let me explain to you folks. Both the Rams and the Broncos are owned by members of the Walton family. That's right. They're both owned by children of Sam Walton. Two people, Ann Walton Kroenke, she and her husband Stan own the Rams. And then you got another member of the family owning the Broncos, although this team is actually managed by his daughter. And his daughter, from what I heard, is a total cunt because she's a huge supporter of charter schools, basically telling everyone that, you don't take your kids to a public school, you put them in a charter school and basically throw Jesus in their face. Yeah, I fucking hate Walmart with a passion. Yeah, you can't even drag me into one. It's like everybody who has ever dragged me into a Walmart has had very low IQ. Jesus fucking Christ on a Harley. And then you look at the Detroit line. So anyway, Maria Machado, of course, gave her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump. And it's like, okay, something, man? What a fucking cunt for doing that. Donald Trump why is he getting all these awards for nothing? It's like he gets peace awards and, FIFA gave him a peace award, Of course, then again, I'm not a big soccer fan myself. And it's like, Donald Trump does not deserve anything. Especially after what he's doing to the American people with tariffs, what he's doing to Minneapolis, what he's doing to foreigners, you name it. And he is a sycophant. He is a sick human being. And, and going back to Ford for a second, I have never purchased a Ford in my life. I don't need, I've owned 6 cars in my life. And none of them were a Ford. None of them were a Ford. None of them were a foreign vehicle. You name it. I only own cars. It's like I've owned a couple of GMs and I've owned a couple of Chryslers. So there you go. So back to what I was about to talk about. So there's this stupid country music festival. It's called, the festival is called Rock the Country. They're coming back to this town over by about 30 miles south of here in a town called Hastings. And Hastings is a town of 7,500 people. They're in Berry County. The county sheriff is an asshole, Darleaf. I've heard nothing but bad things about him. Anyway, Rock the Country is this stupid music festival that's a mix of rock and country and even some hip-hop. Jay Leno many years ago said that the mix of rap and country, well, it's crap. Anyway, so the story is Kid Rock is headlining the tour along with Jason Aldean. Jason Aldean, of course, had a song called Try That in a Small Town. And I'm like, oh my God. This is a guy who was a victim of assassination attempt many years ago in Las Vegas. And then what happened was he was taken. So this is what happens. He writes this stupid song as a response to all the rioting that happened in Minneapolis and other towns because of George Floyd. And basically he's giving the message that if you did what you're doing in these big cities in a small town, guess what? If you're a black person, you're going to have a rope tied around your head, and the other end is going to be tied in front of, in the back of a pickup truck, and they're going to drag you. And then he does the music video for the song right in front of a courthouse where in 1927 there was a black lynching. There was a lynching of a young black man. And it's like, that sent the wrong message. And of course, other people on this tour, also another person on the tour is Aaron Lewis. He's the lead singer of Stained. But, he's with a band called the State Liners. And the story is, Aaron Lewis, I used to like Stained. And then what happened was he decided to come up with a solo record called Country Boy. And the song was basically a slap in the face to people who work their ass off and aren't getting ahead in life. The song came out in 2010, just 2 years after the Great Recession. And basically the message was that Aaron spread was that I work hard enough and I don't need the government to help me. And I'm thinking to myself, man, hey, asshole, I worked for 10 years for one guy, and I wasn't getting ahead in life. My boss was going on vacation after vacation after vacation. I know you right-wing assholes, your logic is, well, why don't you go find another job? How come? Well, what if you can't? What if you have your resume everywhere? I even tried to change my career, folks. The only thing that saved my ass was the fact that my boss was bought out by his partner. And his partner knew how much of an asshole he was. And guess what? I started getting mad raises left and right because our company was profitable again because they started treating us right. You see? And then there's Aaron Lewis, who likes to say shit about, Obama and Biden and the Democrats. Guess what, man? He alienated people like me. People who actually get off their ass every fucking day and go to work. I love the fact that this asshole, a lot of places he performs, he gets booed. And so now the stupid music festival, by the way, I'm in the parking lot of a grocery store. Sorry. He gets booed everywhere where there's liberals in the audience, pro-democracy people, I should say. And all I have to say about that is, I mean, it's festivals like Rock the Country that, that's a safe space for him. But also I get pissed off looking at the other artists on the schedule. Now, first of all, one artist did pull out this week. It was announced that Ludacris is pulling out because his fans got mad at him because of the right-wing bullshit surrounding the concerts. So he's off the schedule. And then, but there is still one hip-hopper on the schedule, and it's Nelly. And I'm thinking to myself, has anybody given two shits about Nelly in the last 25 years? Hot in Here and Country Grammar, hot shit. Oh my God. And it's like now he's doing like county fairs and, playing in front of a bunch of people who probably wouldn't mind dragging him behind a pickup truck. Yeah. Anyway. I'll never understand. But anyway, but a few rockers are joining this festival, and I'm not real happy with them. And one of them is Shinedown. I see Shinedown is now part of the Rock the Country Festival. I've been a fan of theirs for years, and now not anymore because, of course, first of all, their latest record is called I forgot the name of Searchlight. There we go. Their latest record, Searchlight, it has a country feel to it. It's got a slow banjo throughout the song. And I'm like, is this song? Do they play this song at Ku Klux Klan rallies? Jesus Christ. Ugh. And then there's Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll had a great career going. This was a guy who fucked up his life early on, but then again, he got stuck with a alcoholic mother who was not there and a father who wasn't there because he was working to supply the family, and he didn't have many friends growing up, so he ended up hanging out with the wrong kids and got into trouble with drugs and the police and spent lots of time in jail, and it wasn't until he found out that he knocked up a woman that he ended up deciding, okay, I'm going to change my life for the better. And the reason why was because he learned that he was a father. He couldn't be there for his daughter, and he didn't even know what her name was. So he realized that the only way he could make it through life is to have a good, honest job. So he became a rapper. He toured the country in a beat-up van, and then he decided in one of his albums he wanted to do like something gospel-y, sing with his real voice and all that. And guess what? People took notice, and he got signed to a major record deal, and now he plays giant arenas. He recently got inducted into the Grand Ole Opry. Lots of good things for him. But now he's playing this stupid music festival. What the fuck is wrong with him? It's like, basically put, I'll never understand why any artist would want to play that festival, especially if they're, and I don't want to hear, well, we want to reach both liberals and conservatives with our music. And I'm like, okay, I don't like that idea. Okay? Especially if you're, it's like you saying that, well, we just recently played a Ku Klux Klan rally, but we care about black people too. Bullshit, I'll never understand the logic of some people. I mean, because, you know, you look at what Donald Trump is doing to the country. You know what he's doing with ICE and all that. And not only that, there's a lot of people who don't want anything to do with Trump. Like Sabrina Carpenter, because, you know, she recently made, you know, they made this video of one of her songs while they are locking up everybody. And then what happens is she makes a post and tells the Trump regime, get that video off there now, because I do not support what you guys are doing. Now, and meanwhile, the Trump regime, they're going out and telling us, oh, a lot of these people are pedophiles. A lot of these people are sex offenders. Okay. Release the fucking Epstein files. Lock, stock, and barrel. Quit saying that every brown-skinned person who is living on American soil is a pedophile or a rapist. Because that's what the Trump regime's doing. They're lying to you and me, folks. It's one fucked up lie after another. Jesus fucking Christ. When is this shit gonna end? My God. Okay, so enough about Trump right now. I do want to give out some good news. And one of the biggest MAGA assholes to ever walk the earth has died. Earlier this week, we just learned that Scott Adams, the man behind the comic strip Dilbert, died of cancer at age 68. He had been battling cancer for a couple of years. Dilbert was once seen in 2,500 newspapers, and then the strip was dropped by the syndicate due to the fact that Scott made a diatribe against African Americans, saying that the whole African American race is a hate group. And because of that, he was dropped. Newspapers started dropping him. The syndicate dropped him. So he decided to continue on with the strip on a pay service. He decided to keep doing the strip, but on a pay service. And then what happened was then he got diagnosed with cancer and died from it. So how the mighty have fallen, And it just proves, if there's one thing you can ever learn about not just cancer, but the comic strip Dilbert itself, is that both, my friend, are not all that funny. Okay, folks, I gotta get going. My dog is / executive producer. She's doing some whining, and here I am. I'm in the parking lot of a grocery store. I gotta do some shopping. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that for today. I'm King Chuck. Good day. Good luck. Go Bears.